Hello. Today General Hospital will reveal General Hospital has once again thrust its audience into the heart of a storm of emotions by crafting a storyline that feels both shocking and heartbreakingly unfair. The writers chose to have Drew turn against Stella, betraying her trust by reporting her alleged insurance fraud. What makes this particular twist so devastating is that Stella's actions were never rooted in malice or greed. Instead, they came from compassion, from her instinctive desire to help those in need and to bend the rules in order to ensure that someone could receive proper care. What might have been viewed as a simple act of kindness in another light has now been twisted by the law into a punishable crime. This distortion of motives into guilt under the harsh weight of legality has rattled viewers, leaving them stunned and heartbroken as they imagine Stella, a woman of advanced years, facing the cold reality of a prison sentence. For fans, Stella is not merely another character woven into the intricate web of Port Charles. She has become a moral compass, a voice of reason, and an emotional anchor for the Ashford family and the wider community. Her wisdom, compassion, and sharp tongue have balanced out so many crises, reminding loved ones of what truly matters in moments when chaos takes over. To imagine her behind bars, stripped of her dignity and her freedom, is more than just a dramatic turn in the story. It feels like an act of cruelty against someone who has come to symbolize love, loyalty, and the resilience of family. Her absence would not only be a punishment to her but also a devastating blow to Curtis, Jordan, Trina, and all those whose lives she has influenced. The pain of this fictional twist has only been magnified by the real-world news that Vernee Watson, the actress who has embodied Stella Henry since 2017, has officially confirmed her departure from General Hospital. Born in 1949, Vernee Watson is a veteran of Hollywood, with a career that spans decades across film, television, and theater. Her resume is filled with iconic roles, from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to The X-Files, Malcolm in the Middle, and Desperate Housewives. When she stepped into the role of Stella, she instantly became a pillar of the GH canvas, delivering performances infused with warmth, depth, and authenticity. For 8 years, she elevated every storyline she touched, making Stella not just a recurring figure but a beloved cornerstone of the show. It is no wonder, then, that the news of her departure has left fans grappling with grief. They had already mourned the loss of Robert, another treasured figure whose exit created a deep void in the world of GH. Now, to lose Stella so soon after feels unbearable. Viewers have expressed their sorrow across social media and fan forums, many sharing personal stories about how Stella's strength reminded them of their own mothers, grandmothers, or mentors. For them, Stella was more than just entertainment. She was a reflection of resilience and love in the face of adversity. What makes Vernee Watson's decision even more bittersweet is that it was not fueled by creative differences or lack of storylines, but by something far more personal and sobering: her health. Despite her immense love for GH and the joy she found in portraying Stella, Vernee explained that her health had become increasingly unstable, and she felt the time had come to step away to focus on healing and self-care. Her decision to retire from the soap was made out of necessity, not choice, and fans, while heartbroken, have flooded her with messages of support and gratitude. They understand that behind the character they love is a woman who deserves peace, rest, and time to prioritize her well-being after so many years of giving herself to her craft. In many ways, the storyline on GH eerily mirrors real life. Stella being forced to face a prison sentence at her age, weakened and vulnerable, parallels Vernee's own decision to retreat from the spotlight due to health concerns. On screen, it feels like injustice; off-screen, it feels like inevitability. The writers may be using Stella's legal downfall as a narrative vehicle to gently close the chapter on her presence in Port Charles, but the wound it leaves behind will take time to heal. Curtis will lose his aunt, Trina her mentor, and viewers their trusted voice of reason. And much like the characters themselves, fans will be left grappling with how to move forward without her steadying presence. Vernee Watson's portrayal of Stella will be remembered for years to come. She brought grace, humor, fire, and compassion to the role, reminding everyone that age is no barrier to influence or relevance. She was never just a background character, she was a force. As audiences prepare to bid farewell, they do so with heavy hearts but also with profound gratitude. Stella's story may be closing, but the impact she and Vernee Watson has made on General Hospital will remain, carved deeply into its legacy. For a soap opera known for its endless twists and turns, few exits have felt as personal, as painful, and as deeply resonant as this one. What has truly shaken the General Hospital audience is not only the shocking storyline itself, but the real-life decision behind it. The reason for Vernee Watson's departure took fans by surprise, even more so than the twist on screen. The actress, who has portrayed Stella Henry with such strength and tenderness since 2017, revealed that she had not lost her passion for the show or her devotion to the fans. In fact, she made it clear that she deeply loved her time on GH and cherished the loyal audience that had supported her throughout her run. Yet, despite her affection for the role and her desire to continue, her health had become too unpredictable. Facing the reality of her condition, she made the difficult but necessary choice to retire, stepping away to focus on healing and to prioritize her well-being. It was a profoundly human decision born out of self-care rather than creative frustration, but it nevertheless left the fan base heartbroken. They understood why she had to leave, but their hearts resisted saying goodbye to such an integral presence in the world of Port Charles. On screen, Stella is in the midst of one of the most harrowing ordeals of her life. What began as an act of kindness toward Marty Gray helping him receive benefits he was not entitled to spiraled into a charge of insurance fraud that now threatens to strip Stella of her freedom and dignity. Viewers watched in horror as Drew, the very man who benefited from Stella's loyalty in the past, turned on her and alerted the authorities. The betrayal felt especially cruel because Stella's actions were never about greed or selfishness. They were about compassion, about finding ways to ease someone else's suffering. Yet, under the letter of the law, her empathy was recast as criminality. The visuals of her downfall were nothing short of gut-wrenching. Seeing Stella in handcuffs, escorted by officers through the courtroom, was a jarring image that unsettled viewers. For years, she has been the voice of wisdom and resilience, a character who counseled others through their worst trials. To see her treated as if she were a hardened criminal struck an emotional nerve. Fans expressed both outrage and sadness at Drew's treachery and sadness at watching an elderly woman humiliated in such a public way. Adding to the tension are the swirling rumors of what might come next. Some spoilers have suggested that the trauma of the arrest could trigger another health crisis for Stella, perhaps even a stroke. Such a turn would not only mirror her real-life struggles but also place her character in grave danger, making it nearly impossible for her to return even if the legal situation were resolved. Her age and her fragile health within the story amplify the tragedy, turning her possible incarceration into something even more unbearable. It would not just be time served, it could be a death sentence for her spirit and her presence in Port Charles. The stakes are heightened by the uncertainty of whether Alexis Davis, one of Port Charles' sharpest legal minds, can uncover a loophole or expose a flaw in Drew's testimony to clear Stella's name. Fans cling to the hope that Alexis will find a way to turn the tables, perhaps revealing Drew's motives as spiteful or manipulative rather than noble. But if Alexis fails, Stella's fate may be sealed. That outcome would serve as the in-story explanation for Vernee Watson's exit, leaving viewers without the matriarchal figure who has guided so many in the Ashford family. For longtime followers of General Hospital, this blending of fiction and reality makes the storyline cut even deeper. In the fictional world, Stella faces imprisonment and declining health. In reality, Vernee Watson faces her own health challenges and is stepping away to rest. Both arcs lead to the same conclusion: Stella will no longer be part of the fabric of Port Charles, and Vernee will no longer grace the GH set with her talent. It is a parallel that feels almost poetic but no less painful, reminding fans that even in daytime drama, the line between storytelling and reality can blur in ways that leave a lasting impact. Stella's departure from General Hospital is not just the kind of storyline twist that soaps often use to shock their audience, as it is something that resonates far more deeply. Because her absence represents a dismantling of the very foundation of emotional balance that the Ashford family, and indeed the larger community of Port Charles, has long depended on. For years, Stella was not only an aunt, mentor, or nurse, she was the voice that stood in the middle of family disputes and societal chaos alike, reminding everyone of morality, loyalty, and the need to preserve dignity when all else was falling apart. To remove her from this canvas is to tear a hole in the fabric of the show itself, one that cannot easily be stitched back together. The grief of her fictional exit is magnified by the reality of Vernee Watson's decision to step away. And together these two strands of narrative and reality intertwine to create a story that feels both painfully real and hauntingly symbolic. For Curtis Ashford, the ripple effects of losing Stella will be staggering. Curtis has faced loss before his fractured marriage, his battles with addiction, his struggles to build trust in relationships, but through it all, Stella was there, sometimes harsh in her delivery, sometimes gentle, but always consistent in her role as his protector. She embodied the kind of unconditional family love that Curtis often doubted he deserved. To see her taken away not by choice but by cruel circumstance, whether prison in the storyline or retirement in real, it creates the impression that the very ground beneath him is giving way. Without her words to ground him, Curtis risks falling into despair. And for viewers who have watched his growth over the years, the thought of him facing his demons without Stella's support is profoundly unsettling. Trina Robinson's heartbreak is of a different kind. Stella was the aunt who didn't just tell her what to do but listened, understood, and validated her feelings in ways that others often failed to. She was a bridge, someone who connected Trina's youthful idealism with the heart and lessons of life experience. With Stella gone, Trina may feel unmoored, especially as she continues to navigate her own family complexities and struggles with identity and loyalty. The loss of a mentor figure like Stella at a formative time could become one of the driving forces in Trina's growth, forcing her to stand taller, but it will always carry the shadow of grief, because she will be stepping into adulthood without the steady encouragement Stella once provided. In the larger setting of Port Charles, Stella's absence takes away one of the rare constants in a world otherwise dominated by power plays, betrayals, and dangerous secrets. She was a figure of conscience, someone who could call out corruption or selfishness without fear. In a town filled with mob bosses, schemers, and manipulators, Stella's presence was like a moral anchor, reminding character Sandy and C that there was still a place for decency. Without her, Port Charles feels more precarious, more vulnerable to tipping into complete chaos. Viewers know that her voice will not be replaced, because she was unique in her blunt honesty paired with compassion. This loss doesn't just weaken the Ashford family, it weakens the town itself, underscoring how important she was to the balance of the show. For Vernee Watson, Stella was one of the crowning achievements in a long and distinguished career. When she joined General Hospital in 2017, Stella was not initially positioned as a central figure. She could have remained in the background, another supporting relative in a soap filled with larger-than-life characters. Yet Vernee infused her with so much life, humor, strength, and vulnerability that Stella became indispensable. Over time, her role grew, and fans began to see her not just as Curtis's aunt but as one of the beating hearts of Port Charles. The character became layered, sometimes interfering, sometimes flawed, but always deeply human. That transformation was not written into the script alone, it was created by Vernee's skill, her ability to capture the complexity of being both tough and tender, stern and loving. The announcement that Vernee Watson is leaving, made all the more poignant by her candid revelation that her health no longer allows her to continue, has left fans grieving in a way few soap exits ever do. Unlike story-driven departures, where fans can hold out hope for a character's return, Vernee's exit feels final. It is rooted not in creative differences but in the reality of time and health forces that no one, not even beloved stars, can escape. Her decision to retire is deeply human, an act of courage in itself, acknowledging the need to prioritize well-being over work. Yet this does little to soften the blow for the fans who had hoped to see Stella continue shaping the future of GH. The parallel between Stella's on-screen downfall and Vernee's real-life retirement only deepens the emotional resonance. In the storyline, Stella faces the indignity of being handcuffed, dragged into court, and accused of crimes she committed not out of greed but out of compassion. The image of an older woman humiliated by the system is heartbreaking and unfair. In real life, Vernee steps away not because she wants to but because she must, her health requiring her to slow down after decades of dedication. Both stories converge on the same point, the beloved figure leaving too soon, leaving behind a void that will be felt for years. For nearly a decade, Stella provided audiences with some of the show's most memorable moments. From her clashes with Jordan, where she fought fiercely to protect Curtis, to her quiet support of Trina as she navigated her complex family ties, Stella was always present at the heart of GH's emotional core. She was flawed but lovable, stern but kind, tough but vulnerable. She embodied the contradictions that made her real, and Vernee Watson's performance ensured that fans felt every beat of her journey. Now, as fans prepare to say goodbye, they are left with the weight of memory. Stella's storylines may end, but the impact she had will not. For those who grew up watching her, she is tied to their own life memories, the afternoons spent following GH, the moments when her wisdom echoed something they had heard from their own relatives, the laughter she sparked, and the tears she drew. Losing her feels like losing a part of themselves, a part of their daily routine and their emotional history with the show. Ultimately, Stella's departure marks not just the end of a character arc but the closing of a chapter in General Hospital's long legacy. The soap, known for its rotating cast of characters and constant reinvention, will move forward, as it always does. New characters will arrive, new storylines will unfold, but there will never be another Stella. And there will never be another Vernee Watson bringing her to life with such authenticity. For fans, this is both a painful farewell and a celebration of all that she gave them. They will miss her deeply, but they will carry her legacy with them, as part of the fabric of General Hospital and as part of their own personal connection to the show. In the ever-changing landscape of General Hospital, the gradual departure of veteran actors has become a sobering reality for longtime fans. Over the decades, GH has thrived by weaving together the lives of multiple generations, grounding its newer faces with the wisdom and gravitas of older characters who carried the weight of history. Yet, as time inevitably moves forward, the losses of these seasoned performers have begun to reshape the very fabric of the show. With Robert gone and now Stella's departure on the horizon, viewers are grappling with the dawning realization that the golden generation of GHTHE pillars who defined its moral compass and enriched its storytelling with lived experience is slowly retreating into the background. This shift is not merely about individual characters leaving, it is about the erosion of a legacy that has long anchored the soap in authenticity and tradition. The absence of Robert left a void that was deeply felt, a reminder that even the strongest icons of the show cannot remain forever. His loss marked the end of an era, and fans mourn not just the character but what he represented: stability, resilience, and the continuation of a narrative thread that stretched back through decades of GH history. Now, with Stella's departure following so closely, the wound feels even deeper. Stella, brought to life with extraordinary nuance by Vernee Watson, had quickly become a cornerstone of the series in her own right. She may not have been part of GH from the very beginning, but in less than a decade, she became indispensably a character who embodied the balance between toughness and compassion. Someone who could stand toe-to-toe with anyone in Port Charles while still radiating warmth and humanity. The departure of Stella strikes a particularly poignant chord because of the qualities Vernee Watson infused into her. Stella was never one-dimensional. She was stern, sometimes infuriating in her stubbornness, but always deeply motivated by love. She stood her ground in family disputes, whether confronting Jordan about her choices, advising Curtis through his struggles, or protecting Trina with the fierce loyalty of someone who saw her as more than just a niece. And yet, beneath that sharp exterior was a tenderness that made her immensely relatable. Viewers respected Stella's strength, but they also empathized with her vulnerability, her health scares, her moments of loneliness, her quiet regrets. This complexity made Stella not just another character in the ensemble, but a mirror of real life, flawed, resilient, and deeply human. Vernee Watson's ability to craft this layered performance is a testament to her extraordinary talent and decades of experience. Known widely for her work in primetime television, whether as the wisecracking nurse in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, guest roles in The X-Files and Malcolm in the Middle, or recurring parts in Desperate Housewives, Watts brought a wealth of skill and presence to daytime television when she joined GH in 2017. What might have been a supporting character on paper quickly blossomed into something far greater because of her. The audience saw in Stella shades of their own mothers, grandmothers, aunts, or mentors. She became a generational touchstone, one of those rare characters who felt both timeless and necessary. Someone who could elevate even the most dramatic plotlines by grounding them in emotional truth. It is precisely because of this impact that Stella's exit feels like more than just the end of a story arc. For many fans, it feels like saying goodbye to a trusted confidant, to a figure who reminded them of family ties and moral values amid the chaos of mob wars, courtroom dramas, and romantic betrayals. Without Stella, GH risks losing a key element of its emotional DNA, the connective tissue that links the younger cast to the wisdom of those who came before them. Fans fear that with each veteran's departure, the balance of the show tilts more heavily towards spectacle and away from the intergenerational storytelling that has always been its strength. Yet even as her absence leaves fans anxious about the show's future, the legacy Vernee Watson leaves behind is undeniable. She crafted a Stella who was wise without being preachy, strong without being unkind, and flawed without ever losing her integrity. Her performances inspired respect, but they also invited empathy, creating a character who was admired and loved in equal measure. For as long as GH endures, Stella will remain part of its tapestry, not just as a character written into scripts but as a memory carried by every fan who watched her guide, scold, protect, and love her family through their darkest times. In the end, Stella's departure highlights both the fragility and the resilience of General Hospital. The soap has weathered countless losses, and it will continue to evolve, but moments like these remind audiences why they remain so fiercely loyal. It is not simply the drama or the plot twists that hold theme, it is the humanity, the characters who remind them of their own families and lives. Vernee Watson gave them that gift in abundance, and though her time on the show has come to an end, the echoes of her presence will remain, a testament to her artistry and to the enduring power of Stella Henry. The question of whether Stella truly deserves to face prison time has sparked heated discussion among fans and critics alike, and it is unlikely to fade anytime soon. On one side, there are those who argue that Stella's actions, though rooted in compassion, technically broke the law. She bent the rules to ensure that Marty Gray received benefits he was not entitled to, and in the world of legal absolutes, that is fraud. From a purely judicial standpoint, some would claim that accountability must apply equally to all, regardless of age, reputation, or good intentions. Yet others passionately counter this point by highlighting the glaring hypocrisy of punishing Stella so severely when countless other characters in Port Charles, many guilty of far worse crimes, continue to walk free. For them, Stella's so-called crime is not a crime at all but an act of mercy that should never have been treated as a felony. The debate grows even more complex when viewed through the lens of storytelling. Soap operas thrive on moral gray areas, and GH has often taken liberties with what counts as justice. Murderers, mobsters, and liars have all found redemption arcs, sometimes even celebrated as heroes despite their sins. Compared to them, Stella's offense seems almost laughably minor, and punishing her to the full extent of the law feels less like justice and more like narrative convenience. Many fans suspect that the storyline is less about whether Stella deserves prison and more about creating a dignified exit for Vernee Watson. By sending Stella away under the pretense of legal consequence, the show can preserve her integrity, suggesting that she was punished for being too kind rather than too cruel, leaving audiences to remember her as a victim of circumstance rather than a fallen hero. This suspicion is reinforced by the fact that GH has a long history of writing characters out with dramatic, often tragic arcs designed to close the door firmly while still honoring their legacy, whether through death, disappearance, or incarceration. The soap often uses such endings to ensure that a character is remembered for their emotional impact rather than allowed to fade into irrelevance. Stella's storyline fits neatly into this tradition. By framing her as a woman punished unfairly for her good heart, the writers guarantee that she will remain beloved, her departure marked by sympathy rather than resentment. The image of Stella being handcuffed, taken away not because she was malicious but because she cared too deeply, is one that will linger in the minds of viewers long after she has left the canvas. Regardless of which interpretation fans lean toward, the unavoidable truth is that Stella is leaving, and with her departure comes a profound sense of loss. The sadness audiences feel is not only about the fictional fate of Stella Henry but also about the real-world farewell to Vernee Watson. After nearly a decade of watching her breathe life into this character, guiding the Ashford family through crises, clashing with Jordan, mentoring Trina, and standing as a beacon of moral clarity, viewers now face the reality of saying goodbye. For them, this is not just another plot twist, it is a moment of mourning. The emotional weight of this goodbye is what makes it feel like a sentence in itself. Fans are not simply watching a character go to prison, they are being forced to let go of someone who has become part of their daily lives, their routines, their own emotional landscapes. Stella's exit is, in a way, a punishment for the audience too. They are left to grapple with the absence of her voice, her presence, her guidance, knowing they will no longer see her offering wisdom in Kelly's diner, comforting Curtis in his darkest moments, or standing up to anyone who dared threaten her family. It is this shared sense of loss that makes the farewell feel like a mirror of Stella's on-screen fate, an unjust sentence, handed down not only to her but to everyone who has come to love her. In the end, the debate over whether Stella deserves prison or not will remain, but what cannot be debated is the impact she has left. She exits as one of GH's most cherished characters, remembered not for the technicalities of her mistakes but for the depth of her humanity. And for the fans, the grief of losing her is every bit as real as the grief they would feel watching a loved one taken away. That grief is the true verdict, and it is one that will resonate long after the courtroom doors close and the story moves on.